So I'm a little bit in an ornery mood. I'm going to give that as a forewarning for, so I had met this female I had discussed in prior videos named Christine, okay, and several others, where the husband and or boyfriends, depending on, had discussed how they could, fit both of their hands inside of a certain location. And I realized, I have said for a while, that's a you problem in various scenarios. There is a difference between the letter U and V, correct? And so the V has a more slender location. I know that's mean. But that's a sum of you problems. I have a size requirement. You can only be so big. Otherwise, it hurts both you and I. So, there is one individual that would be able to verify that. That was quite a bit bigger than I had been with, and probably would be able to be like, it was great, but ooh, it hurt. It's great, but ow. By a lot. And I didn't even clench. And so that's a really, really good thing, because I didn't want to break them. Just saying. I kind of figured I'd be nice. I mean, it's already a fun time and all that sort of stuff. But then it was like, yeah, I'm having a good time. I just, yeah, I can't. I can't squeeze, because otherwise that's gonna end badly. You probably want to be able to use that again, so. I guess I'll be nice. See, I care. So, there was a point in time where I had dealt with quite a few different individuals over the years. And in regards to the BDSM, LGBTQP swinger lifestyle. And I had gotten along with a lot of individuals. Please don't take the different things that I have, smart-mouthed off on as the entire community. I hope I have at least clarified in regards to it's not everybody, it's just certain individuals, which is like anything else. You can go anywhere and you're not going to get along with everybody. You want to like hope that can occur, but then there are times when like somebody will come in and you're just like, because either they don't accept your limitations, they don't respect your boundaries, they don't, understand that you have stuff in your life just as they have stuff in their life, and, it's just a mishmash of stuff. So, there, I have been made fun of in different ways because I have taken steps back in regards to, especially in the BDSM community, where there were certain individuals that were like, oh, that's so weak to take a step back. And it's like, no. You need to understand, you need to know when to pick your battles, because you can pick a whole bunch of battles and then, win some, lose some. But if you declare a war on someone, you really need to know how to pick your battles. So that way, if you declare a war on someone, you don't lose in the long run. And so, while I obviously did not know until certain discussions much later, in 2018 and 2019 about any possibility of that. It's one of those, well, if there were individuals who decided that they wanted to declare war on me, and in turn that meant my children, my Medal of Honor art project, so on and so forth, well, you picked your battles wrongly. Because messing with my Medal of Honor art project, I mean, not forgetting my children, of course, but yeah, like causing problems to my Medal of Honor art project, I don't know how anybody thought that was going to be a smart idea. I really don't. I mean, I'm dumb. I don't deny that. I just kind of, I really never thought anybody would be like, hey, that'd be a good idea. I don't see how anybody could genuinely think that'd be a good idea. Like, there isn't, like, and maybe that's because, and that is something I got made fun of for, where it's like, oh, you're so respectful. How can you be a dominant sadist, or a dominant or a sadist, either way, as far as that's concerned, you know, and then, you know, like, take a step back. Actually, if you really think about it, that's a lot of self-control. That's a lot of understanding and comprehension of myself to know to take a step back instead of, you know, advancing and you know, that sort of stuff. So, and so, for example, when I was first getting involved really heavily in the Club Femme group, and that was really in Austin that I really got heavily involved with Club Femme. That was my, you know, introduction in that regard, to a lot of certain aspects in that reference. And I was under the understanding, I recently learned in 2020 that it did not start in Austin. My mistake, and my apologies to apparently Houston. I was under the understanding from all the stuff that was going on in reference to different munches and events that Club Femme had begun in Austin. So my genuine apologies in that regard for my misunderstanding. So, you know, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or upset anybody or anything like that. So, in regards to when the DFW chapter had opened up, and different discussions in that regard, when going to a meeting or an event or whatever at Matrix Renee's and Jason's house, it was one of those, I just thought it would be the same, just with different people, I guess is the way I kind of figured it. And it was very different, realistically, than Austin. Not just because of the people, not just because of the location, but like just even the energy. It just there was so much difference in that regard. And there was a point, at that point I was dating Patrick Kennedy and that whole thing, and whatchamacallit, there was a lifestyle event, I can't remember where it was, but it was in the Dallas area, and it was after Matrix Renee's coming out party as the premier dominatrix in Dallas. While living in Fort Worth, I still don't understand that. That is what it is. I gave so many warnings and nobody wanted to listen in that regard. Nonetheless, at this event, Matrix Renee had gone around and given these name tags to a whole bunch of the Club Femme females in Dallas, and Dallas-Fort Worth. And so she came up to me and she goes, oh, you don't need to have a name tag for Club Femme. You haven't earned it yet. And I was like, okay. I didn't even know that Club Femme did name tags. Like, I've been to a whole bunch of events at the Club Femme Austin one. I don't remember ever having to wear a name tag. But okay, you know, cool. I guess, you know, let me know, like, what I owe if that whole thing. And Waitress Renee at this event, she was just like, no. I don't think you understand. You haven't earned your name tag. Okay, yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand what that means. What does that mean, I haven't earned my name tag? And she was like, because, you know, you're not officially a part of Club Femme. And I was like, oh, you mean Club Femme DFW? She was like, no. Club Femme, like, in general. Oh, okay. Who do I need to contact Lady Robin? do I need to ask her to verify? Like, because I wasn't laughing at that time, you know, it's just one of those, like, nervous things in this point, because it's one of those, I really didn't even know. Like, I had no idea, like, there were certain things, and it was like, what do I have to do to earn it? I'm confused. Like, I don't remember in Austin having to wear a name tag. Did I miss out on that meeting? Did I, like, not get the memo on that? Like, was that something, like, I was too busy doing, you know, all the stuff I was dealing with at that time, that I missed, you know, some sort of something? You know, I'm trying to do what I can, so, you know. And at that particular event, I don't remember where it was. I know it was in Dallas, though. It was the one where all of the dominant females who wanted to be on stage had swung or did something to the different submissive males, as far as like a show or something like that. And it was just one of those, well, you know, are you going to go on stage with us? And I was like, no. And then Patrick tried to, like, complain to get me to go on stage, and it's like, no, I don't want to. And so, like, everyone was explaining to me, as far as I was concerned and involved with that, they were like, yeah, we're just going to see who could swing the hardest. It's like, yeah, no. I do not need to be on that stage. I'll take a step back, because no. What they didn't understand is I didn't have one of my tools that I would have preferred to use to be on the stage to do that, but then it was also so crowded that I wouldn't have been able to get a good backswing, realistically. In that regard, and so it was one of those, no, I'm good, I'll just stay back here, whatever. And then it was, well, what, do you think you're too good to be a part of Club Femme? You just told me I don't even, like, have the ability to even know how to get a name tag. Like, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't understand why this is even a thing. I'm kind of just wanting to, like, relax and, like, have a couple of whatever downtime from, like, everything that's going on in my life right now. I can't even, like, come to an event and get, like, a few, like, no, like, I have to be bombarded by, like, I'm not dealing with enough drama. And, like, not that that stuff that I was dealing with is technically drama, in my opinion, but I was told that that was drama, and it's like, I thought that was life, because that's what I was dealing with in my life. It wasn't drama to me, but that's what others had said it was, and it's like, okay, to each their own, okay. So, I think it was at that event, possibly, or it might have been a prior one or the other. Matrice Renee was on a platform, and she was wearing a corset, and, and I had noticed one of her stick-on boobs were, like, kind of coming out of the corset. And so she was in the middle of her session, and I just kind of waited, because I was not going to interrupt the session, and I was not going to, like, make a big to-do about that. It's just one of those, I'll just wait. And so when she finished, I was like, hey, come here, like, Renee, I need to speak with you. She was like, Lady Dori Belle, you have to call me Matrice Renee. Okay. I want to let you know, and I did it in a very, for those who understand, I did it kind of like in an East Coast way, where I was like, hey, there's the side of right here, and in your corset, and if you go look in the mirror, you'll see kind of like a little bit of your stick-on thing, and, that way you don't have to worry about it. I can show you how to put that on so that way it doesn't, come out of your corset when you're doing stuff, if you would like. And I made sure to stay in, where she was against the wall, and not in a threatening way, but in a, that way you can, she had the ability to take a look, and then she was like, oh, and I'm like, do you want me to show you? No, I got it. And she just took off, and it's like, all right, whatever. Well, at the next event, which is a weird coinky-dink now that I think about it, I mean, albeit a few years later, at the next event, a bunch of the dominant females were like, Lady Dori Belle. Yes, and it was very loud, and it was like, okay, let's go. And I don't mean the event, I mean where they called me out, and I was like, yes. They were like, so how do you get your boobs to look like that? What do you mean? And they were like, in your corset. How do you do that? I mean, we all have boobs and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, it's how I put my corset on. And I've been wearing corsets for a while, and I went into the explanation of how I got into corsets, and then a bunch of them were like, oh, so you don't have somebody who will help you do that? And then they kind of laughed, and I was like, no, I'm fairly self-sufficient. I wanted to wear corsets. When I got corsets, I wasn't dating anybody, so I had to learn how to put my corsets on by myself. And so that's, like, I could show you how to do that. No, that's okay. And we were just wondering how you get your boobs to look like that. I mean, do you want me to explain or not? I'm confused. And then they all laughed, and it was one of those, okay, so do you want me to explain or not, or why are you asking me this question? I'm so confused. And, I realize now it was, essentially being picked on and stuff like that, and it's one of those, whatever. Back then it was like, well, I'm going to go outside and smoke, since apparently you want to, like, ask me a question that you don't want the answer to, so okay, I'll just go outside and smoke because, I don't understand any of that. And, who was it? I think it was Patrick's ex-girlfriend, which I didn't even know that they had dated until later. Like, Patrick wound up telling me that, and I was like, why didn't you tell me before? Like, I am not the type of person who likes to step on anybody's toes. And, like, seriously? And he was like, yeah, it's just Mistress Teresa, and I'm like, well, I guess guess I'll be sending a message because apparently you couldn't just tell me that. And then he was like, well, would you have gotten involved with me if you knew? No, I wouldn't have. I'm that type of person. I would not have. I would not have gotten involved with you. If I knew you were involved with someone and it was not discussed in like an open aspect, no, I would not have gotten involved with you. Ironically, it was not very long after the end of that relationship. And just saying. And so, but it was just one of those. No, I don't think you understand. I don't like that sort of stuff. I understand that there are open relationships. I understand this sort of aspect. It's not something I don't understand. It's not even something I don't comprehend. I have dated quite a few individuals and in different scenarios. And you have to remember where I grew up. So I knew quite a few people that had various types of relationships. I grew up with people whose children I went to school with, and you know, sometimes they wanted to discuss it and sometimes they didn't when it came to they had two moms or they had two dads, and that was in New Jersey. And so, you know, I've seen quite a bit of stuff. I've been friends with individuals. I've known people who have gotten involved with that, been the third, been the fourth, been the fifth, however that sort of thing, you know, was. And so I mean, the lifestyle is not exclusive to the state of Texas at all. I don't know if you know that. If you do not, now you know. And so, you know, there's quite a few. And there was a female that was friends with Renee. And at one particular event in Austin, I had discussed how embarrassed I felt. Like, I was out on the in the smoking section and speaking with a bunch of the Club Femme females. And this one female was like, why are you embarrassed? And I'm like, oh, well, I contacted this guy up in New York. And I was like, hey, you know, I'm really interested in, you know, this aspect. And I didn't understand it was a professional aspect. And it was just before getting involved with the Austin Dominant Mentor Program. And so it was like, I'm wanting to make sure I understand certain things. And the guy was like, yeah, you are more than welcome to, like, you can stay here, you know, don't have to worry about that. We can teach you all sorts of stuff, it would be great. And then, you know, there was something else, and I was like, oh, I apologize, I misunderstood. I really would like to. I am glad you guys are safe and stuff like that, because the location being in New York, and I grew up where I grew up and grew up walking around where I grew up walking around. So it was one of those, you know, I really genuinely appreciate that. It would be really funny if it was one of the places when I was younger, just walking around the vicinity of, and nonetheless, it was just one of those. I was telling the females at Club Femme, I was like, I'm really embarrassed because I misunderstood. And so one of the females said, oh, well, I can go with you to New York. I'll ride your coattails so that way I can do all this stuff. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, you know, like, I'll just ride your coattails. You can go do what you want to do, and I'll just, you know, tag along. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, you could go do whatever you're going to do, and then I could just, you know, be there. And I'm like, this is like the first time I've ever met you. What do you mean you're going to ride my coattails? And she was like, well, you know, you got the approval, so let's go. And it's like, I just said I'm embarrassed because I did not understand certain things. And so, but no, you're not going to ride my coattails. And she got offended, and Renee wound up showing up later, and then, well, what do you mean you're not willing to, and I was like, I'm not willing to, because I've got a few things that I'm dealing with. I misunderstood certain things. And so, you know, my embarrassment comes from my lack of understanding in that regard. And so all of the group of them were like, oh, we would give it up just to go to New York. And it's like, I don't think you understand. There's a few things that are extremely important that I need to take care of well before, you know, that sort of aspect. And I'm not going to vouch for you. Like you, I just met you. You're doing what you're doing as far as the different stuff, so you know you can have your own aspects of things. And it was just, you're being rude against us. No, you are not listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. There's quite a few things that in that reference that, you know, it is to be respectful. And you're doing the premier dominatrix thing in Fort Worth, the claim he does. So, I'm not going to bring that there. I'm not bringing that there. And it was when she was originally talking about it. And I was like, no, I'm not going to. No, because you're not listening to that very, very important part. You and your New Jersey, New York thing. Well, why are you saying, oh, my New Jersey, New York thing, and yet you want to go with me to New York? I'm just throwing that out there. It's kind of a little bit of something I can't understand in that regard. And so there was a whole bunch of stuff, just a lot. And I was like, I can't. I can't. This is not to be rude. This is just, I can't. I can't. And there were quite a few that were, I would have given everything. And it's like, yeah, no. My son and my daughter are my everything. And I'm not willing to give that up. And it is not an offense towards them. It is not an offense towards anyone. I never want to have an issue looking back and have a, well, what if I did situation. I don't want my children to ever be like, well, what if, you know, sort of. I want them to be able to be like, my mom handled stuff, and I know no matter what, she always loved me and cared about me despite everything that was going on. Put me first and all that. And so, you know, and it's not an offense towards the people of New York if they actually knew at that time. And people in that vicinity, they were just like, what do you mean if they actually knew? I was like, I can't explain that. I can't go into that. And they were just like, oh yeah. I was like, no. Even if I were to, you know how you don't believe me about what's going on with my daughter because of the Fort Worth Zoo stuff? And they were like, yes. I'm like, you definitely wouldn't believe me then. Guarantee you. A reference to that. So I'll just leave it alone. And they're just, oh, you're such a snob and blah, blah. It's like, if you actually knew me, you would know without a shadow of a doubt that I'm the furthest thing from a snob. If you actually knew me. Whatever. And so later on, there was a bunch of stuff in reference to the threats I was receiving. And so there were a particular group of individuals, and I say this not because they were necessarily connected, but in regards to their threats became very similar. So when I was in San Antonio, I had already been receiving threats for a while, and there was, at that time I had a roommate, Alicia, and she came out to the patio where I was smoking, and I had just received another message saying, well, if you're not going to take, this much, what about this much? And it just, like, kept going up in price. And it was one of those per hour. And it was like, I can't. Like, it's not in any offense. Like, I am not what you are looking for. And that wasn't in threat regard. Some of them did turn into threats. Like, well, if you're not willing to do this, then I'll make you do other things. And it's like, what is this? Why is this an issue? Like, why? And so I had gotten another offer, essentially. Alicia came outside and she saw the dollar sign, she saw the comma, and she saw the decimal point, and she goes, is that what you're being offered for a day? It's like, no, that's for an hour. And she was like, why aren't you going to take that? I was like, I have to be able to do, like, stuff, and, like, yeah, I can't. And then I had to deal with explaining that to her. And I was like, yeah, like, this is some of what I've been dealing with. And she was like, why won't you take that? All you have to do is, let him cheat on his wife. And it's like, did you hear the words that came out of your mouth? And she was like, yeah, what's the big deal? All you have to do is be okay with it. Because I was sitting, that's why I'm looking up, because she's shorter than me. But, all you have to do is, like, be okay with that guy, like, cheating on his spouse. Do you know what that translates to me as? And she was like, no, what? That guy can spend that much money. And we wound up going inside. I closed the laptop, we went inside, and I was like, that guy can spend that much money per hour. And she was like, yeah, what's the big deal? I'm like, that guy can spend that much money per hour. So what? To cheat on his wife. Yeah, so what? Do you care if that, I mean, yes, okay, obviously if he can spend that much per hour, he can most likely provide for his children if he has any, and make sure his wife is taken care of. I get that. But, part of that is not discussing certain things, and I've been on the other end, not in the exact same way. I have found out as far as, like, that cheating aspect, and that was very hurtful. And so, constantly, I don't know if she's actually trying to be involved with him and he's just pushing her away or what, but I know what that feels like, and because of that, I cannot do that. Not just for the other reasons that I have given, but that is a really big thing. And then, with that sort of number, she probably has a bank account too. And I had a situation before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I don't think so. That's not okay, because the situation was the wife came to the dinner to where I was with apparently her husband, and I didn't know that he was married, and she sat down. I was like, hi, I know you're new, and this sort of stuff, explained the whole thing, and I was like, oh, yeah, that and then he showed back up to the table, and I was like, so, not going to be a part of this, just so you know, ever. And I remember that after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. On that particular note, you have a good one.